So Dragon's Dogma 2 has finally released, and honestly, it's a pretty good game if you're able to look past some of the major issues, something that we'll also be discussing today in this video. And after roughly 70 hours of playing the game, enjoying every bit of it, I finally think I am informed enough to also give an opinion on the game, alongside a couple other tidbits to share about the game with no spoilers. And we're also going to criticize some people with some absolute horrendous takes that know nothing what they're talking about. So that's pretty much the gist of this video. You'll be hearing my thoughts on the game and what I think of it, and you also get a bit of salt on top of it, so enjoy. So I think we'll start off with the issues of the game, and I think the first issue we'll mainly look at is the microtransactions, because people are really overblowing them like they're gonna change the way that you play the game or look at the game. It's completely useless. There's an in-game store, and there's also an online store where you can buy those Rift crystals, and those Rift crystals are completely useless. The only microtransaction that I could actually see being worthwhile purchasing would have to be the port crystal. Everything else is very easily obtainable, but port crystals are a finite amount. And this is coming from me that has New Game Plus 4 times already just from playing the game and speedrunning it to see if I can actually farm more things at the, let's just say, one of the endings that give you stuff, okay? I won't spoil it, but pretty much some of the stuff that you farm is associated to the ending, well, if you want to get it in a good amount. But for the most part, one thing that I did note is that there are no respawning port crystals. The only way that you can actually technically get more is through a quest line with the Sphinx, and that's it, as it allows you to duplicate one item of your choosing regardless of what it is. But I haven't checked the nest locations that you can actually ride griffins and dragons to, as they also seem to have port crystals there, and I haven't bothered to do that yet. That's the one thing I really haven't done, as, you know, I usually kill them too fast to start riding them around. And it should be mentioned, I've done all the quests that actually hand out the port crystals, and they only seem to hand them out once, so I don't think you actually get any more, but I could be doing the quest wrong that leads to me missing that item. So I guess the next thing that we could really talk about, as there's nothing else I could really add to the port crystals, is how you can change your appearance. You can change your appearance in the in-game shop for 500 Rift crystals. You can also buy a book on the store for, what is it, $2 or something? It's completely useless. You can farm like 1,000, 2,000, 7,000 to 10,000 within less than an hour. And the best way to calculate this is every 15 minutes you get roughly 2,500 off the top of my head, if I did the math correctly. Just roughly that. So there's really no point to buy any of the Rift crystals off the store. Everything, like I've said, can be easily gained through the game with normal gameplay. And I guess my next major gripe is from people also saying, and they make it sound like that this is the only way that you can actually change your appearance is through spending a couple dollars to change it. No, you can earn this all in-game. You can buy multiple books if you so choose. And it's really annoying because it comes off like they're spreading misinformation, which they're not really. They just either haven't played it far enough to get to that point, which it's really early in the game. It shouldn't be that necessarily hard. It's just really annoying to see them say that, and then it just makes it sound like that there's no other way to earn it, and it really gives the wrong impression, is mainly what I'm trying to get at. I kinda forgot to mention this during the part when we were talking about Rift crystals, but to get numbers like that is through optimal farming with a group of other people, so just keep that in mind. You're not going to get that normally by yourself. But I think, in conclusion, these microtransactions really just shouldn't exist. They have no purpose. You're not really gaining much of an advantage over having them. There's really no need for them to even exist in a single player game, and I can't really see any way that anyone could actually justify buying anything but maybe just one of them. That is it. Everything else, just not necessary. It couldn't, like, I don't even know why they bother even doing it at that point. I mean, yeah, it's Capcom, they've done it for a lot of their other games, but it really just doesn't seem necessary at all. You could have gone without them and, you know, played the game normally like everyone else, and you're not really getting that much of a big advantage. You know, only having around, what is it, like 10k Rift crystals ain't gonna get you far, because there's not really much to spend it on. So I think it's just time that we move on to the performance issues with the game. It's terrible. I'm running this game on high in the gameplay in the video, right, and I'm just getting under 60 FPS. It's kinda bearable in some instances, but there's a lot of stutters. Like, my PC shouldn't be struggling to run this game. It's past the recommended specs, and I should be able to run it pretty seamlessly, but the optimization is genuinely terrible. Even on console, people are having issues. I was watching my friend stream the game the other day, and he was having issues, and probably because he was streaming on top of that, but even without that, it's just unacceptable to have these type of performance issues in a game. It just really makes the game, you know, less enticing for a lot more people to play, because the game under this, with all of its issues, is a genuinely good game. And that's the sad thing, that a lot of people may never pick this back up because of these issues at the start. But then again, that's really up to them if they want to come back. I can't really blame them necessarily, but I do think a lot of people are going to miss out because of these issues. But I think you might be asking this question right now: should we purchase the game? Not on PC. I do believe console may be more of, you know, an agreeable purchase, but for the time being, I would just wait for performance fixes to come out unless you're really desperate to play an RPG. I don't really think that's much of a necessary purchase right now. You know the game's good, and a lot of people have pretty much said the game is good. This isn't just like a me thing. Everyone seems to be enjoying the game for the most part, even with all of its issues. But if you're someone that wants to get, you know, an actual worthwhile purchase, I would probably just wait for some performance fixes. And for the main part, what actually causes these performance issues is a bottleneck in the CPU, as well as DLSS and FSR not being used correctly and doesn't actually give you the full fix. Modders have already fixed that issue, and it's much better than the normal one you can find in-game, which is honestly quite interesting. So I think before we move on to what I think of the game overall, I'm just going to talk about some bugs that I've witnessed, mainly AI pathing and visual bugs. For the most part, the AI are pretty smooth getting from point A to B, but there have been issues where they just stop moving, stop following you, and it's usually to those people that are associated with Quest, not usually your pawns. I found something a little bit interesting during the recording of this video, and it's go to Task Manager and set the game to high priority, and you should probably fix some of the stutters at least, and give yourself maybe just a little bit better performance, and for some reason it isn't set to that normally, so I thought I would just share that now, just for those who want to get a little bit better without any mods. So let's get back on track. I think the only visual issue that I saw a couple times was this one. I don't really know how to explain it, it just occasionally happened when I went into dialogue on one instance in the open world, and it just seems to happen on certain textures. I don't know why it does it, but it just does it, and it's kinda funny. So I think we're at the part where I have to give my review. I don't know, is it a review? I wouldn't really care. I'd just say more of an impression than anything. I mean, even with all this time, I feel like I'm still confident enough to talk about it, but I wouldn't really treat it as a review. But for the most part, I've already said that the game is good, but why is that? It's mainly because it sticks true to what the original game was, and just adds more content over it. It keeps true, maybe a bit more slower paced combat, but just expands everything. It keeps the quest design from the first game, and alongside that, it keeps the combat pretty similar, and takes some inspirations from DD on. But I think where the game really fails is in its music. It doesn't stick out like the first game. The first game had some pretty memorable music, especially when it comes to some of the boss fights, but this game doesn't really have it. But mainly that was seen in its DLC Bitter Black Isle, where it had a lot of those really cool soundtracks. But still, it needs to have some memorable soundtracks. I mean, some of the bosses are certainly cool and memorable in some regard, but they're not, you know, the best that they can truly be without some good music. It's like having Dark Souls bosses without music. It just wouldn't feel right, it wouldn't be good. And I think my next problem is with the game is that the endgame content isn't that good. It's kinda because it's time gated. You have a very short window of time to actually do it before you end up either going through and getting stuff done. I won't really spoil it, but it's tied to an ending. And I kinda wish that there was a system similar to the Everfall where you could just jump into an arena and start fighting bosses. I wish that was more of what they did instead of doing this other way around with it. And for the most part, those are my only problems. The rest of the game is pretty much just Dragon's Dogma 1, but better. That's pretty much it. And if I was to give this game a rating, it would be an 8 out of 10. But then you include the performance issues, and now it's a 4 out of 10. But that's pretty much what I have for the game right now. I don't really have many things to say. I've just been enjoying my time with it. The game's a genuinely good game under all those issues, and I have nothing to really complain about besides those major things, and those are things that most people may not even bother experiencing in the time that they play it, because it's not really the most playable game right now to play, and I absolutely agree with people. This should have been delayed for another year. So we're finally up to the last thing on my notes that I took for this video. Let's go talk about the salt around Dragon's Dogma. We don't have many, but I think the stuff that I found is either amusing, a bit shitposty, or just a bit stupid to look at, as it could just be taken as bait and leave it at that, but I'm sure most of you don't care. So the first one we'll be taking a look at, and the second one is the last one. How can anyone justify and say that MTX is okay for a single-player game? She literally costs more than a AAA game. This has to be a piss take. This can't actually be an actual serious take, and this person's got around 33 hours. They shared it in their tweet when they were talking in the replies. You're buying a pawn that's quadruple your level. You shouldn't be doing that. You're meant to buy 5 above your level or 5 below. Like, just imagine getting your hands on a pawn that's like level 900, right? I think, what is it, level 999 is the max level, and what is it, 200 is the max stat level that you can get. Imagine getting one of those and being able to complete the game relatively fast. That would be kind of it would nullify the point of having rift crystals in the game. So the next one we'll be taking a look is from the Steam community, but I found it on Twitter, I had a quick look through it, and I found it pretty interesting. And it seems that the guy is genuinely serious from what I found through the Steam community. It was quite amusing to actually look at and see this. He's literally having a sook over being called, well, how he perceives it being called gay in a video game. grow some thicker skin. I won't read the entire thing, but I just thought it was funny, and there's a lot of memes around it on Twitter. You know, you could have had like a reasonable complaint compared to everyone else, but your immediate goal is to suck about being called gay. They couldn't even be calling you gay. You could just, you know, you could like assume it's them calling you gay, but in reality they're probably not. They're just commenting on something that they've noticed, you know, like a normal person would do, especially when you have options to have women in your party. You wouldn't call that out? I think it's pretty cringe you don't have any women in your party. Maybe they've actually got a point now. I can kinda understand where they're coming from and how you assume that, you know. I think maybe they were onto something. I think we found a little bit more out about you that you didn't want to share with anyone. Honestly, I tried to find actual salt around this game, like people actually using it for the console war or trying to prove a point. The only one that I actually found talking about this in like a light where, you know, they would like, Nintendo, it's Harmon Smith. Of course it's Harmon always talking about this stuff. But then again, I don't know what he was talking about because I didn't watch his video. All I know is that he sucked about Dragon's Dogma 2 and how it's like an inevitably bad game and everything about it's bad probably, and whatever else he does normally in all of his videos, so that's pretty much it for this video. I couldn't find any actual genuine salt from any of the fanboys of any group. It was pretty sad. I was expecting them to like, I get a consistent 30 frames, but then again, they are the same guys that champion having 120 FPS or 60 FPS, so them turning around and defending 30 FPS or saying, we get 30 FPS at a consistent rate, maybe doesn't look good. And that's pretty much it for this video. I'm gonna go back to play Dragon's Dogma, and I hope you all have a great day.